Texas football fall camp starts this week, and all is right with the world again. What are the biggest position battles to keep an eye on over the next month? We'll talk about it on today's episode of Locked On Longhorns. Intro.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You were locked on to the Texas Longhorns. I'm your host, BK Brad Kellner, Texas grad, Austin local, and longtime sports radio host here in the Lone Star State. Thank you for making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as well. Please remember to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and remember to leave a comment. That's one of the fastest ways to help us grow right here on Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com. We will take a deep dive look at the Texas linebacker room. We will also talk about some of the Longhorn rookies who are making an impact early on at NFL training camp. But first, what are the biggest position battles for Texas fans to pay attention to as we approach day one of fall camp? Oh yeah, players report tomorrow. Day one of practice is on Wednesday. Longhorn football is back, and it is a beautiful thing. Some starting jobs are already locked up. We know Arch Manning is QB1. We know Anthony Hill is starting at linebacker. We know Michael Taff and Manny Muhammad have two of the starting secondary spots locked up. There are a few more that we could list, but there are also a number of jobs that could be up for grabs over the next month leading up to the first game against Ohio State. And the five competitions that I'll be most focused on are as follows. Starting with number one, the interior defensive line. Yeah, Texas lost 7 scholarship defensive linemen from last year's team, including a couple of day 2 draft picks with Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton. Of course, to fill the void, the Horns brought in 5 defensive linemen from the portal. They also signed 3 blue-chip recruits out of high school. You've got a couple of scholarship returnees in the mix as well. Which of those guys step up and lock down the 2 starting roles? And of course, the defensive line will always rotate. Which of those guys will earn the most playing time when we get to the regular season? I think both of those starting spots and, all of those snaps are kind of up for grabs right now. We got a little bit of a taste of what Cole Brevard and Hero Kanu could do during the spring. Travis Shaw was a pre-spring transfer, but he was dealing with a lingering knee injury that kind of limited him in the spring. And then, of course, Murad Watson and Levon Johnson, your other 2 portal pickups, they didn't come here until after the spring. So we really don't know who those guys are. We haven't seen them suit up for a padded practice in Austin. So all of those snaps seemingly up for grabs. I feel like Cole Brevard is one of the favorites considering, the 1,000-plus career snaps that he had at Purdue. Got Murad Watson, the freshman All-American from a year ago. He's a candidate. I think all of these guys are going to contribute this year. But again, who separates themselves from the pack and who gets those first snaps and maybe more importantly, the fourth quarter snaps in the shoe on August 30th. So that's number one. Number 2, the secondary. Texas legitimately has 8 guys who are good enough to start at the 5 secondary spots. And that's not including any of the freshmen who might already be at least close to the conversation for starting time. I mentioned it a moment ago. Michael Taff, Manny Muhammad, it feels like those guys are locks for 2 of the 5 starting gigs. So now we're talking about 6 other players for 3 openings. And again, just like with the defensive line, guys are going to rotate here. So losing a job doesn't mean you're losing out on a chance to play. But, Jalen Gilbo, Jelani McDonald, Derek Williams Jr., Kobe Black, Wardell Mack, Warren Roberson, all 6 of those guys, I think, are ready. I think they're good enough to start on a lot of defenses. I would even say the majority of defenses around college football. Which of those guys are good enough to earn the other 3 starting jobs on what should be, once again, one of the best defenses in college football? Oh, by the way, I didn't mention Jonah Williams and Cade Phillips and Grayson Littleton, 3 blue chip freshmen who all had tremendous springs in either football or baseball, obviously in the case of Jonah. But the secondary, Fascinated to see how that thing plays out. Very curious to see how healthy Derek Williams Jr. is. If he's back to the guy he was pre-injury, I think he's a starter. Jalen Gilbo making the move from nickel to outside corner. Does he win that other corner job opposite of Manny Muhammad? Is he still playing some nickel? Jelani McDonald, is he your other safety? Could he play some nickel too? Those guys are being cross-trained. You've got some great pieces. You've got some versatile pieces. Who separates themselves from the pack? That's another one. Number 3, position battles to keep an eye out for. The running back rotation. I feel like Trey Wisner is the starter. I don't think there's much controversy there. But who's number 2? Another position where multiple guys are going to play in every single game. Who's the number 2 tailback? I don't even know who it is going into camp. I think in a perfect world, it's a 100% healthy CJ Baxter. But how close to 100% is CJ Baxter? Steve Sarkisian said everything was right on track a couple of weeks ago. Is that the case? Is CJ going 100%? Is he in full pads from day one of camp, or are they going to kind of ease him into things? And more importantly, is he 100% by game 1, or are they going to have to ease him into the season after he didn't play a single snap of football in 2024? So if it's not CJ Baxter, what about Jarrett Gibson? Did he take a step going into his second year? Sounds like he's kind of transformed his body a little bit to try to, make himself more useful to this Longhorn offense. Scored 4 touchdowns, had nearly 400 yards as a true freshman last season. Does he take a step in year 2? How's Christian Clark coming off of his season-ending injury that he suffered last year in fall camp? Clark was back for the spring. A minor miracle considering he fully tore his Achilles. He's back on the field 7 months later. Is he the guy that this coaching staff hopes he is? And then James Simon, one of your early enrollee freshmen. Sounds like he had a really, really good spring. Can he find his way into the running back rotation in fall camp? Again, Trey Wisner, the lone returning 1,000-yard rusher on this team, the lone returning 1,000-yard rusher in the SEC, feels like he's going to get a bulk of the carries throughout the year, especially early on in the year. But the other running back snaps feel like they could be up for grabs. I think something that could separate these guys from each other. How are they in pass protection? It's a big reason why Jarrett Gibson saw his snaps kind of disappear towards the end of 2024. And then how are they as receiving threats out of the backfield? Running back receiving is a big part of Steve Sarkisian's offense. Both Trey Wisner and Jaden Blue had more than 40 catches last season. You lose Jaden Blue, who was obviously a big-time receiving threat out of the backfield, scored both of your touchdowns against Ohio State. He is not going to be easy to replace from that regard. So it's not just the traditional running back running that is going to separate these guys. Who's able to do the other parts of being a running back in the Steve Sarkisian offense? That might be the difference between, guy number 2 and guy number 4 this season. That's another one. Another position battle worth monitoring. When we touched on a little bit last week, the backup quarterback competition. Trey Owens going up against the Troy transfer Matthew Caldwell. Sounds like this thing could be 50-50 right now. Caldwell didn't get here till after the spring, so he's got a little catching up to do, but sounds like he's done just about everything right so far since he got to the 40 acres. And Trey Owens, we haven't seen a whole lot of him. Only 4 career pass attempts. And he had that great spring game 2 years ago, but that was 2 years ago, and that was a spring game. So what is Trey Owens right now? And does it tell you anything about Trey Owens that the coaching staff after the spring felt the need to go out and bring in a portal quarterback with a bunch of experience in Matthew Caldwell? That one's up for grabs right now. And again, it's not a starter, but any Texas fan who's kept up with his team over the last couple of decades knows that way more often than not, the Longhorns have needed multiple quarterbacks to get through a season. So that's going to be an important one to pay attention to. Who wins that battle between, again, the Troy transfer Matthew Caldwell and the so-called incumbent in Trey Owens going into his 3rd year with Texas. And then I told you I'd give you 5. We've talked about 4 to this point. The 5th position battle that there's more than 5, but the 5th one that I'm really going to be keeping an eye on, right tackle. Feels like it's Brandon Baker's job to lose, the former 5-star recruit going into his 2nd year. He got the bulk of the reps with the ones towards the end of spring practice a few months ago, but Andre Kojo got a bunch of runs with the ones. He kind of started spring camp as the starter at right tackle and continued to rotate with Baker throughout the spring. Kojo's got the experience edge over Baker, something to pay attention to. And then Nick Brooks. Don't forget about Nick Brooks. We talked about him last week when we did our deep dive preview into the Texas offensive line. The coaching staff loves him. Again, on the field, he's done everything right since enrolling early back in January. We've touched on him being Trevor Goosby's backup at left tackle. There's a very good chance that's the case. I wonder if he could maybe push for the starting job at right tackle. Is he that good this early to where, he's not just your third best tackle. He might be your second best tackle, and he might be good enough to throw out there in your starting five. Again, I don't know for sure, but worth monitoring as things go along. I fully expect Brandon Baker to start with the ones. I think Kojo's going to be kind of your first guy off the bench at right tackle. I wouldn't be surprised at all if you hear a little bit about Nick Brooks getting some reps with that side of the offensive line as well. So gave you a lot there. There's more we could talk about, but the 5 position battles that, once again, I will be really honed in on over these next few weeks, and 5 that are incredibly important to the success of this Texas football team in 2025. What I miss? Comment below with your thoughts. What are you going to be paying most attention to between now and August 30th when the Horns, of course, take the field in Columbus? All right. We're down to 2 days away from the start of Texas fall camp. We'll continue our position-by-position preview and discuss the biggest storylines with the linebackers. Oh, yeah. It's coming up next right here on Locked On Longhorns. But first, a word for our friends at Monarch Money. You ever wish that managing your money felt easier? Well, with Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or saving up for a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full control and visibility over all of your finances. This is no ordinary budgeting app. Monarch Money is an all-in-one experience. All of your credit cards, all of your bank accounts, all of your investments, all in one place. Plus, if you have shared accounts with your family members, boom, you can track them all in one spot. So instead of just managing your money, you can actually start building wealth with Monarch Money. Again, I used to have 5 or 6 different budgeting apps in the past, one for this investment, one for that investment, one for crypto, one for this credit card. You don't need it anymore with Monarch Money. It's all right there for you in one spot. So you can take control of your finances with our friends at Monarch Money. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com, and you're going to get 50% off your first year. Yeah, how about that deal? monarchmoney.com is the website. Locked On College is the promo code. You type that in, you're going to get 50% off your first year from our friends at Monarch Money. All right, back here on Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. Not sure if you've heard, but Texas fall camp starts on Wednesday, 2 days from now. And each day leading up to the 30th, we've been taking a deep dive look at a different position room on the Longhorns roster. We spent most of last week talking about the offense. We also got into the D-line on Friday. Today we continue our defensive preview of camp, and we talk about the linebackers. For my money, the best position on the team, and also for my money, the best linebacking room in the country. And I'm not alone with that sentiment, by the way. Both Phil Steele and Athlon Sports have Texas listed as the number 1 linebacking unit in America going into 2025. So it's not just Texas grad, it's not just Longhorn Nation, not just people in the state of Texas, whatever. It's people all over the college football world who have been heaping the praise on the Texas linebackers all off season long. So because this group is so good, there aren't a ton of real questions going into training camp because most of them have already been answered. But a few that I came up with for the sake of this segment. Number 1, how much does Trey Moore play at linebacker? We know Trey Moore's going to play. He started all 16 games for the Longhorns last year, but he was playing edge, predominantly edge, solely edge, as a matter of fact, in his first year with Texas. Came on strong towards the end of the season, had 5.5 sacks in the second half of the year. But during the spring, he was getting some work in with the linebackers as well. He was kind of cross-training from edge to, a more traditional off-ball linebacker. And I thought that was interesting. Again, it took a while for Trey Moore to get things figured out. Put up some great numbers at UTSA in 2023. And, it's obviously a big jump in competition going from the American to the SEC. Felt like it took a while to kind of get up to speed with the difference in opponent, difference in pace of play, all of the things that are different between, a G5 school and the best conference in college football. Finally got it figured out. And again, he was an awesome player down the stretch. I figured Texas was going to leave him there to continue to develop him and say, okay, what can we get with a full good season of Trey Moore at edge? But once again, he's been cross-training, dating back to the spring. So how much does Trey Moore play at linebacker? You obviously have Anthony Hill. You've got Leonga Lafau. Your two starters from last year are back this year. Brad Spence, the transfer from Arkansas. We'll talk more about him in a moment. Does Trey Moore rotate with those guys? Does he play as much as those guys? Remember, Ant Hill made the transition to this position between his first and second year. More of an edge guy in year one. Made the move to full-time linebacker in year two. Worked out pretty well. Guy's an All-American caliber player. Has a chance to be a very high draft pick next year. Can lightning strike in the same spot twice, if you will, with Trey Moore? Fascinated to see what his role is, and I'm sure we'll see and hear about that a lot more. Yes, pun intended. Yes, pun intended. Over the next few weeks. So that's question number one. Question number two, I mentioned Brad Spence. What type of impact does the Arkansas transfer have? He was third on the Razorbacks in tackles last year. He's played in 23 career games, only started 5 of them, but a guy who, again, logged a bunch of snaps in Fayetteville in 2024. And he was one of the first portal pickups of the offseason for the Horns. So a guy that they targeted and really wanted to get, and they got him. And he played well in the Longhorns' victory in Fayetteville last season. 7 tackles and a sack in that Texas win. For the year, he had 6 TFLs and 4.5 sacks as a backup. Pretty solid numbers there from Brad Spence, who I think could also cross-train a little bit, play some linebacker, but also line up off the edge. Two, I actually spoke with John Neighbors, who hosts Locked On Razorbacks at SEC Media Days in Atlanta a couple weeks ago, and he said it's just a solid SEC linebacker. He's not going to set the world on fire, but he is a solid, reliable linebacker who's going to force his way onto the field. That's what John Neighbors said about Brad Spence. You'll take that. Doesn't need to be Ant Hill. Doesn't need to be Leonga Lafau. But can he be this year's David Benda? I think David Benda, 6-year linebacker, finally ran out of eligibility. Never set the world on fire during his Texas career, but he was really solid and dependable, especially in his last 2 seasons. Like, I would sign up for that in a heartbeat with Brad Spence. If he could be this year's David Benda, maybe he's got a little bit more potential than Benda too. Then, Texas has a really good number 3 linebacker who they can mix in with, again, Anthony Hill and Leonga Lafau. So excited to see what the former Hog does over the next month. And then question number 3, what type of year 2 jump do we see from Tyanthony Smith, the only linebacker that Texas brought in the 2024 class? One-time A&M commit, flipped to Texas towards the end of the cycle. Very important flip right there. Tyanthony Smith played in all 16 games as a freshman, had a total of 16 tackles, 1.5 TFLs, half a sack, did have an interception against Florida, kind of in mop-up duty in that blowout victory at DKR. A lot of Tyanthony Smith's run was on special teams, but again, the coaching staff trusted him enough to play in all 16 games last year, which means he was in there for playoff games. He actually had a tackle in the Clemson game. That game was kind of close throughout. So, yeah, Tyanthony Smith did a little bit as a freshman, was on the field a good amount. Does the staff trust him enough to take an even bigger step this year and have a bigger role? And I'm not talking about weeks 2 through 4. I'm talking about, like, in Columbus is Tyanthony Smith on the field making plays. Again, a lot in front of him with Ant Hill, Leonga Lafau, and Brad Spence, and maybe Trey Moore too. But I liked what I saw from Tyanthony Smith. A lot of recruiting guys that I talked to were big fans of him coming out of high school. And has he done enough? Has he grown enough from year 1 to year 2 to, again, kind of force his way on the field and be a factor in the game against Ohio State 33 days from now? So there you go. The biggest questions at linebacker, the Anthony Hill question, he's obviously worth talking about. Like, does he play well enough to be a top 10 pick in next year's draft? Is he a top 5 pick in next year's draft? I have no question about the game. I'm just like, what does he do for an encore after 2 unbelievably good seasons to start his college career? I saw a mock draft from ESPN's Matt Miller that had him going 4th overall. he doesn't play the most premium position on the field. You're going to have to be really good. I think he is that good, but he's going to have to put up some gaudy numbers to get that kind of love from the NFL. His numbers last year, very impressive. 113 total tackles, led the Horns with 17 TFLs, second on the defense with 8 sacks, had 4 forced fumbles, also had an interception. He was awesome. He is awesome. How awesome can he be in his second year at this true linebacker spot and what's going to be his final year at Texas? That's your question with Anthony Hill. But, man, enjoy him while you have him, Longhorn fans. He's been a pleasure to watch play over the first 2 years, and we'll get a few more months of Anthony Hill, and hopefully the Horns can make the most of a supreme talent. He's one of the most talented players Texas has had at any position in a long, long time. It's good to catch up with him, too, in Atlanta a couple of weeks ago as well. All right. There's your linebacker preview as we sit 2 days away from training camp. How about some updates on some Longhorns in the NFL? Texas rookies standing out in training camp, including one who's already being compared to a Hall of Famer. Got the details coming up next right here on Locked On Longhorns. But first, a word for our friends at Game Time. Have you ever decided at the last minute you want to head to a ball game with friends and family? Maybe you're tuned in the Metroplex, want to catch the Rangers. Maybe you're tuned in from H-Town, you want to catch the Stros. Whatever. Our friends at Game Time make it super easy, regardless of the team that you support, to get last-minute tickets. And with the money you're going to save, you could splurge on food, on drinks, on merch. You can even invite a few more friends to come to the ballpark with you. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple, even at the last minute. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. Incredible last-minute deals. You get a clear view from your seat before you purchase. They have no random fees, so you're not going to get got when you are buying your tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. It's so easy to use. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, Locked On College with the Game Time app, and boom, $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, final segment, Locked On Longhorns, a Monday show. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Thank you all for starting your week off with us. Texas training camp, of course, starts on Wednesday, but plenty of former Texas players have already started their training camps, as every NFL team has begun preparation for the upcoming 2025 season. And a few Longhorn rookies have been turning heads in their first few days of their NFL careers. Of course, Texas had 12 players drafted back in April, and for most of them, it's been so far so good. We'll start with Quinn Ewers, who was actually the last Longhorn selected of the 12 who went. There's been a lot of recent praise for Quinn Ewers in Miami. His head coach, Mike McDaniel, spoke earlier today about the job that Ewers has done so far. He said, quote, Quinn Ewers is doing great. Rookies develop at different speeds, but regardless of their development, I think with Quinn, it starts with a quarterback being a leader of men. And he has, you could tell he has, a personality trait within him that his teammates really gravitate to. And, quote, over the weekend, I saw Chris Perkins, who covers the Dolphins for the Florida Sentinel, say that Quinn Ewers was, quote, the star of the Dolphins' third practice. I'm seeing reports of great timing, quick release on his throws, not making the same mistake twice, which is huge for a quarterback and really huge for any rookie trying to transition into the league. All good things so far from Quinn Ewers. Could he be this year's Brock Purdy? I know he wasn't Mr. Irrelevant, but Brock Purdy, 7th-round pick, having a great career, just got paid in San Francisco. It's a joke that Quinn Ewers fell to the 7th round. Maybe he could be the steal of the draft. Now, Tua's the starter. Zach Wilson's the backup. But Tua gets hurt all the time, and Zach Wilson. So maybe an opportunity for Quinn Ewers if he continues to impress during camp and through the preseason to actually get some meaningful snaps in his first year in South Beach. Speaking of guys who slipped a little further than expected, Dallas Cowboys running back Jaden Blue, the 5th-rounder, he's also had a strong start to his training camp. There were reports, I don't think we talked about him here, before Cowboys camp even started, about Jaden Blue being lazy and not doing a whole lot to give the Cowboys brass confidence in him. He actually responded to those reports on social media and basically said, hey, let the production do the talking. I know it's training camp, but so far the production has been pretty damn good for Jaden Blue. I saw Nick Harris of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram and Texas Sports Unfiltered say that Jaden Blue was one of the 4 most impressive Cowboys players during the team's first week in Oxnard. So it sounds like he's put some of those work ethic and immaturity questions behind him. I thought it was a joke that someone was calling him out for that before his first camp. Like, can we let him take the field before we're asking that kind of stuff and criticizing like that? Felt ridiculous to me. But so far, so good for Jaden Blue. A quote from Brian Schottenheimer, the new coach of the Dallas Cowboys. He was asked about Jaden Blue over the weekend, and he said, quote, the speed, the dynamic playmaking ability. He's a dual threat guy. He doesn't need a lot of space to make guys miss. He's uncanny. But what I like is the professionalism he's shown at this camp, end quote. Yeah, Shotty saw the reports too, and he's sticking up for one of his guys. Love that from the coach. But the rest of the stuff, the speed, the dynamic playmaking ability, dual threat guy, we saw that. And there are some videos being posted on social right now of what Jaden Blue's done at camp. You're seeing the speed. You're seeing the playmaking ability. Just turn on the tape. He's got a chance to play this year. The Cowboys running back room is not good. He can play this year. He could play a lot as a rookie, especially if he's cured his fumbleitis that kind of plagued him in his last year at Texas. If he didn't fumble so much, he would have led Texas in rushing last year. He would have been a much higher draft pick. So if he gets the ball security issues taken care of, again, Cowboys may have found themselves a steal on day 3. And last one for this segment, Matthew Golden, first-round pick of the Green Bay Packers. No surprise, he's getting some love, right? Well, how good has he been in Green Bay? He already has himself a new nickname, and he's already being compared to a Hall of Famer. Rich Bisaccia, the former Raiders head coach, is now the current special teams coordinator in Green Bay. He has coined the nickname Bullet for Matthew Golden, paying homage to Dallas Cowboys legend Bullet Bob Hayes. When Bisaccia called Golden that, I read this story. Matthew Golden had no idea who Bullet Bob Hayes was. So he told Golden to look it up. Golden did, and he's like, all right, I appreciate that. I'll take that comp. And can't be too mad at Matt Golden for not knowing who Bullet Bob Hayes was. I mean, Hayes actually passed away a year before Golden was even born. So we'll forgive him for that. But damn, you talk about high praise right there. Matthew Golden has apparently been utilized in a bunch of different ways already. Jet sweeps, motion plays. Obviously, he's a standard wide receiver as well, lining up in the slot, lining up on the outside. His head coach, Matt LaFleur, said, quote, he's got that extra gear. You can see it in the way he separates from defenders. It's exciting to think about what he can bring to our offense, end quote. Look, I can't stand the Packers, so it's not exciting for me. But as a guy who roots for the Longhorns, yeah, I'm excited to see what Matthew Golden can do up there. He's got a chance to be very special from day one. One more quote. I saw this one from his teammate, Josh Jacobs, the starting running back for the Packers. He said about Matthew Golden, quote, he's a guy who can do it all. You see the potential. He's going to be a problem for defenses, end quote. He was a problem for opposing defenses last year in college. I fully expect that to continue in the league. So good stuff for Quinn, Jaden Blue, and Matthew Golden. It's not just them, but we're out of time. We'll continue to give some updates on these Texas rookies in their training camps in the National Football League. But that'll do it for today's show. If you made it this far, number 1, thank you. Number 2, please remember to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, rate 5 stars, and please leave a comment. Love interacting with the people, and that's one of the fastest ways you can help us grow right here on Locked On Longhorns. Appreciate y'all for making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day. For your next listen, check out Locked On Bets with my man Lee Sterling and Kevin Rogers. They are your one-stop shop for all of your sports betting needs, expert analysis, game picks, the lock of the day. They've got you covered. Find Locked On Bets on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. More fall camp preview. Got some recruiting conversation as well. Never a dull moment on the 40 acres. We're talking about all of it right here on Locked On Longhorns. But that'll do it for today. Until next time, horns up, mic's off. We'll see y'all soon. This is Locked On Longhorns.